In this video, we will be talking about the twin oscillating engine. Here you can see the twin oscillating engine in full assembly. Now we are going to move on to the base plate frame. The base plate frame is the mount for the piston assembly. The base plate frame is made out of brass. You can see that it's symmetrical about the y-axis. Connected to the base plate are two top locks. The top locks acts as stiffeners for the ends of the base plate. Here you could see that there's one top lock on the right side, and you could see that there's one top lock on the left side. These are soldered to the base plate mount. Next, we are going to move on to the stiffener subassembly. Here you could see the crank bearing, which is the base of the stiffener assembly. The crank bearing is made out of brass. This is what holds the crankshaft. It is the guide of the Connected to the crank bearing are three stiffener plates. The two shown in the video are made out of brass, have a triangular form, and have holes in it to reduce the weight. These are used to mount the crank bearing to the plate frame and assembly in order to hold the crankshaft in place. On the bottom is another stiffener plate used to level up the crank bearing and keep it secured. Next, we will talk about the full assembly. Here is the base. The base is made out of wood and will hold up the rest of the assembly. Connected to the base is the base plate subassembly. It is connected by two wooden screws in these two holes. Attached to the base plate is the stiffener assembly. It is soldered to the base plate at the three stiffeners. Next, there are two cylinder bases. These is where the cylinder is going to sit. The cylinder bases are connected to the crank plate only at this hole. You see, it is free to rotate about that hole. The cylinder bases are made out of brass as well. Here you will see the cylinders that are connected to the bases. They are free to move about the same hole as the cylinder bases, as shown here. This will move with the bases around that hole. The cylinders are soldered to the cylinder bases. Here is the crankshaft. This is what drives both the flywheel and the piston. It is free to rotate about the center axis. Here you will see the crank plate, which is connected to the crankshaft. Here is the big end of the piston stem and the pin that holds it in place. The pin is fitted into the big end and then fitted into the crank plate. On the other side of that pin is another crank plate, also fitted into the pin. Connected to the big end is the piston itself, piston stem. Connected to the piston stem is the piston that sits inside the cylinder. It is free to rotate in any way. On the other side, you have the same thing. You have the second big end for the second piston stem. That is connected to the second crankshaft. The pin is fitted into the big end, which is fitted into the crankshaft to keep it in place. Connected to the big end is the second piston stem, and connected to the second piston stem is the second piston, which also sits inside the cylinder. Here you could see the cylinder pin spring, and the nut that holds the cylinder block, connecting it to the base plate. And there you have it. Here is the full assembly of the twin cylinder engine. Now let's look at the twin oscillating engine in action. As you can see, as the flywheel is rotated, the pistons move inside the cylinders, which move with the cylinder blocks around the pin. The pins are here that hold them together. Here's the flywheel. and it is all free to rotate about the crankshaft. As the crankshaft rotates, the pistons rotate, the flywheel rotates, the cylinders rotate, and the pistons rotate inside the cylinder and move inside the cylinders.